Nina Turner hit the news today. And if you don't know Nina Turner is a progressive pundit, political activist, and former Ohio State senator. And she was at the Democratic National Convention last week. And while she was there, like a lot of people, Nina did some interviews. And one of the interviews was with the Free Press. And I'm a Nina Turner fan. I appreciate Nina. I've interviewed Nina a bunch of times. I like what she generally has to say. She was one of Bernie Sanders' major allies, pulling the Democratic Party to the left. She's run for public office. She's always honest and principled. So I got a lot of good things to say about Nina Turner. But she said something that I couldn't fully make sense of. And so I want to talk about it. She said that with the Free Press, and she was asked why so many Black men support Donald Trump over Kamala Harris. And her answer was patriarchy. I agree. No doubt about it. Absolutely patriarchy. But she said more, and it was the more that had me.
What's your read on why so
the more had me just a little bit confused. Let's check it out. Peep this.
Many Black men, Hispanic voters have found in Trump something to admire, something even to vote for?
Madam Editor, I'm glad you asked me that question. For me, the Democratic Party emasculates Black men.
Wow.
And I think Hispanic men probably feel the same way. And I say this because they weaponize identity. When and where we enter, who we are, how we identify is important to who we are, just like our fingerprints. But if you're not going to use my identity to advance a social justice cause, and you're just going to use my identity as a blunt force object, now I got a problem. So what the Democratic Party does, they put Black women on a pedestal and they say, we're the mothers of the movement, or we saved the party. But yet you don't put forth policies that save Black babies. You don't put forth policies that deal with the maternal death rate of Black women and Black babies in the United States of America. You don't do those things that lift and edify. Yes, identity is important. Both parties use it differently. Republicans use it to say that everybody Black or brown or of a mixed race is somehow kind of way a DEI hire. They use it to say certain books will be banned. Don't tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth about how this country was formulated, because you might hurt a white child's feelings by saying that, yeah, chattel slavery existed. And oh, by the way, white powerful folks stole the land from the indigenous people. So all of those things, Chinese Exclusion Act, I mean, we can go down the list, but Democrats use it in a way that alienates other folks, and it offends me. So when I talk to Black men across this country, they don't see themselves in this party. It's one thing to recognize the power and prowess of Black women and the sacrifices that we make. It is another thing to put us above Black men. The Black struggle, Black men and Black women have to be together. We don't have the luxury to be separated. And so I resent the Democratic Party for doing that. And so Black men do not see themselves in the party. That bravado, because we got a kind of masculine energy, and masculine energy is not all bad, but the type of bravado that Trump puts forward is still very much rooted in a hierarchical patriarchy. Mm-hmm. And a lot of men gravitate to that.
So what do y'all think about what Nina Turner just said? My opinion is that there's a lot of truth in it. But there's some missing pieces, and it's the missing pieces that are dangerous. All right, so let me start with this preface. The Democratic Party deserves a lot of criticism. The Democratic Party exploits identity politics. She is correct. The Democratic Party plays on identity politics. It's the only way you can replace a white male imperialist neoliberal warmonger with a Black woman version of it and expect people to think that the whole world is different. Now, again, there are practical and critical reasons. There are pragmatic and strategic reasons to vote for Biden or for Kamala Harris or for whoever. but it doesn't negate the cynicism that the Democratic Party is operating from when they say, look, it's all different. They look like you, they act like you, they have the same gender as you, right? Identity politics can make you think that the biggest issue with Harvard University is that they got rid of the Black woman president, which is true, and it was grounded in white supremacy and racism, and it was completely wrong, and Claudine Gay was mistreated, the whole nine. But underneath that is a bigger question of empire. It's a bigger question of the neoliberal technocratic university. It's a bigger question of what capitalism does and how Black people can become the Black face of it. So the imperial part of it gets ignored, the neoliberal part gets ignored, and we focus on the identity politics at a superficial level that then makes it impossible for us to have a radical class critique or radical analysis of any sort. So I stipulate that. So Democratic Party, trash for that. But to say that the Democratic Party is emasculating Black men, I think is problematic because it plays into the very patriarchal system and structure that she is identifying and critiquing. It is true that the Black men that identify with Donald Trump are probably closing ranks around patriarchy. That's an absolute fact. We also have to be very mindful to not overstate the amount of Black men that are voting for Donald Trump. Black women are the most loyal party to the Democratic. Black women are the most loyal demographic to the Democratic Party, you know. But the second most loyal demographic is Black men. And there's a way sometimes that because Black men only vote for Democrats at like the 85% rate instead of like the 89 or 90% rate, that they're seen as this group with false consciousness and misdirection, and as if the misdirection is not vote and the false consciousness only hinges upon whether or not they're Democrats. It also plays into the idea that that Democratic Party is entitled to Black people's votes. So again, stipulate those critiques, but at the core here is a question about whether the Democratic Party is emasculating. What does it mean to emasculate Black men? How are they emasculating Black men? That to me misses the point. And the reason why I'm highlighting this is because it lets Democrats off the hook for what they're actually doing, but it also lets men off the hook, Black men off the hook for appealing to patriarchy. And it also lets Donald Trump off the hook for how he traffics in that patriarchy and that misogyny and that misogynoir, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? In other words, the people who identify with Donald Trump because Donald Trump gets to do whatever he wants, because of that bravado, because of that hyper masculinity, because of that really toxic masculine energy, the people who appeal to that, they have a different vision of what liberation looks like. They have a different vision of what freedom looks like. For them, freedom and liberation rests in Black men being as unaccountable, as violent, as harmful, as toxic as white patriarchal masculinity permits white men to be. It's why when Bill Cosby gets locked up, they say, "Oh my God, that didn't happen to Harvey Weinstein." When they say that, they're not calling for Harvey Weinstein to get treated like Bill Cosby. They're calling for Bill Cosby to get treated like Harvey Weinstein. The lack of accountability, the ability to harm, the lack of punishment, the lack of accountability. This is what we're talking about. And so when we talk about, in a real way, why Black men are, to the extent that they are, appealing to the Trump movement, that's not about Democrats emasculating Black men. There's nothing emasculating about promoting Black women. There's nothing emasculating about supporting or appealing to Black women. When the Democrats say, hey, we're going to put Ketanji Brown Jackson in the Supreme Court, or we're going to make Kamala Harris VP, yes, you can make an argument that it's a cynical appeal to identity politics, but you could also make the case that Black women are the reason Joe Biden became president. They're the ones who organized. They're the ones who registered to vote. They're the ones who did the labor. And because they did the labor, because they organized, because they did that work, they were rewarded. That's what politics in America is supposed to be, right? You fight for your stuff and then you get your stuff. So what we need to think about is how we can become a more organized and energized voting base that then makes demands of people. Don't just vote for Democrats because they're Democrats. Vote for Democrats because they meet your demands. Vote for Democrats because you're going to leverage your power to get things done, whether it's ending this war in Palestine or excuse me, this genocide in Palestine, or whether it's getting reparations here in the United States, whether it's getting reproductive justice here in the United States, whatever the thing is, we got to do it. I'm not telling people you got to vote Democrat. I'm saying you got to make an organized political movement. And to say that this is about the Democrats emasculating Black men, I don't think that's right. I think it's about Donald Trump presenting a very toxic, white supremacist, patriarchal vision that too often becomes appealing to the oppressed. Someone said, my uncle loves the devil because the devil gives him nothing. Right? You learn to identify with your open enemies. You learn to identify with the people who hate you. And you want to be like them because they become your vision of freedom. They become your vision of humanity. It's a Paulo Freire talked about. Also, repedagogy of the oppressed, right? He said, for the oppressed to be is to be like, and to be like is to be like the oppressor. So it makes you other than your own self. When that happens, Donald Trump becomes appealing. So I love Nina Turner. That's my sister. I appreciate her. But I agree with like 90% of the analysis. But that 10% that doesn't end with patriarchy, but ends with the Democrats being emasculators, that's dangerous language. Not because I want to defend the Democrats. You can trash the Democrats. There's lots of reasons to criticize the Democrats. I just don't think that's the right point.